March 2019. The damp, cold air enveloped the old Baptist church by the San Marcos River, a few miles from downtown Luling, Texas. The beam of investigator Sarah Denton's flashlight cut through the thick dust, illuminating the uneven dirt floor behind the abandoned building. Dispatch: I need a forensics team at the scene. We might have found something. Her voice echoed in the empty courtyard, mingling with the sound of flowing water and wind. What began as a routine cold case review had now turned into something entirely different, something that would answer questions haunting Luling for over 7 decades. Beneath the soil near the riverbank, the forensics team uncovered a set of skeletal remains and a silver ring engraved with the initials EH. The ring Evelyn Harper, a 17-year-old girl, wore the night she vanished after the summer festival in 1948. For over half a century, Evelyn's disappearance was a wound the town chose to forget. A young girl, last seen with Reverend Clyde Walker, the respected pastor of this church, never returned. Local papers dubbed it Texas's unanswered disappearance. The 1948 search lasted weeks, but yielded only a shoe, a scrap of floral fabric, and rumors. As the investigation grew cold, the case was closed with a curt note: missing, cause undetermined. Reverend Walker continued preaching for 4 decades, revered as a pillar of faith, never charged or questioned again. But 70 years later, a sealed envelope found in an old evidence locker changed everything. Inside were the floral fabric, a strand of hair, and the silver ring, seemingly insignificant items that opened a door to the past. When DNA from the evidence was analyzed, everything the Luling community believed began to crumble. The discovery at the old church wasn't just the end of a missing person case. It was the first domino in a chain of truths hidden for over 70 years, a truth about sin, power, and a community's silence. Because when investigators finally identified the primary suspect, it wasn't a drifter or a stranger. It was someone the town had admired, prayed with, considered its soul. The Evelyn Harper case wasn't just a mystery solved. It was a testament to the persistence of a generation of investigators, the power of DNA technology giving voice to the lost, and proof that justice, though delayed, never vanishes. It's also a story of a community divided by faith, where religion once shielded crime, and where truth ultimately found its way back to the light. Where are you reading from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I'd love to know how far these stories travel and how they connect us. Tonight, we'll go back to the summer of 1948, tracing Texas' most haunting disappearance, and witness how justice, buried for 70 years, rose to speak for Evelyn Harper. This is a story of faith, silence, and delayed, but never denied, justice. Summer 1948, Luling, Texas, buzzed with the excitement of its annual festival. Along the small streets, yellow electric lights reflected off red dust. Mobile stalls sold roasted corn, cotton candy, and lemonade, while a loudspeaker played old country tunes. Amid the lively crowd, Evelyn Harper, 17, the only daughter of the local gas station owner, stood out for her quick wit and radiant smile. She had just graduated high school, planning to head to Austin at summer's end to train as a secretary. That evening, Evelyn joined friends at the fairgrounds beside the Baptist church, where Reverend Clyde Walker, a well-known local pastor, was overseeing the parish's charity booth. Some recalled seeing Walker talk at length with Evelyn. Both left the booth as the fair wound down, with him reportedly offering to drive her home since her house was far and it was dark. Witnesses saw the pastor's gray Ford leave the area as the fair's music and lights faded. That was the last time anyone saw Evelyn. As the night passed without her daughter's return, Mrs. Harper grew anxious. The porch light stayed on, the dinner table grew cold. Her father, thinking she might be lost, drove the main road from the fairgrounds to their home, passing Caldwell Bridge, where he stopped upon spotting a lone white canvas shoe by the roadside. Nearby, a scrap of floral fabric, identical to Evelyn's dress from that night, was caught in the riverbank's brambles. He brought both items home, showed his wife, and when they recognized them as their daughters, they stared at each other in silence, fear rising sharply. They asked neighbors. No one saw Evelyn return after the fair. Through the night, their small house glowed with dim light, every passing car stirring them to the door. But outside was only the wind rustling through the grass. Near dawn, as hope faded in exhaustion, Mrs. Harper lifted the phone receiver, hands trembling, and dialed the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office to report her daughter missing. The report was relayed through the night dispatch system. At dawn, as fog still blanketed Luling's fields, Sheriff Bill Sanford took the first call of the day. He quickly gathered 2 deputies, started the black Plymouth, and drove to the Harper residence, bringing a film camera, notebook, and scene-measuring tools. On the porch, the middle-aged couple stood silently, faces haggard after a sleepless night. The mother pointed to the canvas shoe and floral fabric on the table, her voice breaking. Sanford carefully examined each item, jotting notes, then asked to be taken to where they were found. The patrol car stopped at Caldwell Bridge, where a narrow dirt road led to the San Marcos River. Morning sun slanted through oak trees, highlighting wet mud from the previous night's rain. A rugged path showed distinct tire tracks, deeper than usual, as if a vehicle had stopped and turned around. Sanford and Deputy Benton crouched, measuring the track's width and spacing with a wooden ruler. Nearby, they found multiple small footprints, matching Evelyn's shoe size, leading to the river's soft edge before vanishing. Larger footprints overlapped, but were too blurred to identify the shoe type or gait. On a low branch near the water, a strand of golden hair was caught. Sanford used tweezers to collect it, sealing it in a cloth bag labeled Evidence #3. A few meters away, the floral fabric was torn at the side, its threads still fresh. Everything was photographed and documented meticulously. Despite scouring the bridge area, the patrol found no signs of violence, no blood, no drag marks, no other personal items beyond those collected. The San Marcos River flowed quietly, its surface reflecting pale light. Sanford stared at it for a long moment, then ordered Deputy Benton to call 2 locals to assist in searching the riverbank. They poked mud with sticks and shone flashlights under the bridge, but found nothing. As the sun rose higher, Sanford compiled the notes and opened an official file. Harper, Evelyn, missing person, possible abduction. A map was spread on the patrol car's hood. Sanford marked evidence locations with red ink, connecting them in a line from the fairgrounds to the bridge, stopping abruptly at the water's edge. To him, the girl either fell into the river or was taken by vehicle from that spot. To test the latter, he had the tire tracks' depth measured and compared to common Ford models in the area. All matched the 1946 Ford sedan, a common model, but only a few dozen were registered in Caldwell County. Sanford noted in the margin, "Identify owners of this model within a 20-mile radius." After initial evidence collection, he and the team returned to the fairgrounds, where Evelyn was last seen. The stalls were dismantled, leaving only wooden posts and scattered paper debris. Sanford questioned locals, many confirmed the girl's presence until late, some vaguely recalling her talking with Pastor Walker near the church's pastry booth. He took preliminary statements, holding off on conclusions. By noon, the sheriff returned to the office, filed an initial report, and ordered missing person posters distributed around town. In the first report to the county office, he wrote concisely, "No body found, no evidence of assault. Possible victim was lured from the fair and vanished near Caldwell Bridge. Continue gathering witnesses, expand search along the San Marcos River." The case was officially logged in the local criminal records that day. In the first 2 days after opening the missing person file, Sheriff Bill Sanford focused on collecting statements from those at the summer festival, hoping to reconstruct Evelyn Harper's final hours. He and Deputy Benton visited shops, gas stations, churches, and homes around the fairgrounds. Most locals recalled the girl at the event with friends, playing shooting games and buying snacks. Some described her in a blue floral dress, hair tied with a bright ribbon, standing out in the crowd. These details matched the family's description, confirming her presence at the fair. Toward the fair's end, multiple witnesses saw Evelyn talking with Reverend Clyde Walker, the Baptist church pastor at the parish booth. Accounts noted Walker, in a white shirt and black tie, holding a donation ledger, appearing friendly. A middle-aged woman, Helen Moore, said she saw them leave the booth area together, Evelyn carrying a cloth bag, Walker close beside her, heading toward the south gate to the main road. A young man at the barbecue stand recalled Walker's gray Ford starting up soon after. He noted the pastor often drove parish members home after events, so no one paid attention. Asked if anyone else was in the car, he confirmed seeing a floral-dressed figure in the passenger seat. This statement was recorded verbatim, labeled #14. Two of Evelyn's classmates mentioned she had talked about asking Walker for a summer job at the church office. This supported the likelihood she met him that night. Sanford called Reverend Walker for an official statement. During the interview, Walker remained calm, saying he only walked the girl to the main road since she was alone in the dark. He claimed he didn't leave the fairgrounds, returning to help volunteers clean up. Asked for corroboration, he named 2 parish members, but they couldn't recall exact times due to the crowd. Walker added his car was a gray Ford sedan, license plate 6C217, and offered it for inspection. Sanford noted all details, observing Walker seemed overly cooperative, almost rehearsed. After Walker left, Sanford cross-referenced statements. Most aligned on the time Evelyn left the fair with him. Another witness, a Southgate vendor, added that about half an hour after the music stopped, he saw the gray Ford pass the main road toward the Baptist church, carrying only 2 people up front. This was the most critical initial statement, but lacked direct evidence. Sanford and Benton questioned more vendors and staff, but gained no new information. Most learned of Evelyn's disappearance the next morning. By the second day's end, Sanford mapped overlapping points. 1. Evelyn left the pastry booth with Walker. 2. The gray Ford was seen leaving the fair. 3. Tire tracks matching a 1946 Ford appeared near Caldwell Bridge, where evidence was found. The data connected but didn't form criminal evidence, lacking a witness confirming Evelyn was with Walker past the residential area. Sanford sent a summary to the county office, recommending continued monitoring of the pastor. However, due to Walker's community standing and ties to local officials, deeper scrutiny wasn't approved. The investigation paused at witness collection, with Reverend Walker, though not charged, becoming the primary suspect in Evelyn Harper's file. Right after completing the statements, Sheriff Bill Sanford organized the largest search Luling had ever seen. From early Tuesday, patrol teams, local volunteers, and reserve soldiers were mobilized, split into small groups. One team traced the route from the fairgrounds to Caldwell Bridge, another expanded west along the San Marcos River, where slow waters were flanked by dense reeds. 2 tracking dogs from the neighboring county were brought in, sniffing around the shoe and fabric site. The first morning yielded only old footprints mixed with police tracks from prior days. By noon, intense sun and rising heat slowed the search. Deputy Benton's team launched a rubber raft, scanning the river slowly, using wooden poles to probe the banks, checking bends, driftwood, and bushes. Small ripples left thin foam, but nothing suspicious surfaced. At the bridge's other end, militia searched pits and abandoned wells, finding only trash and old cans. By afternoon, Sanford paused the search to compile data. He marked the map, Caldwell Bridge, the northern river stretch, and the grassy lot behind the church had been searched twice. He noted, no signs of violence, no body, no large objects in the water. The next morning, the search widened to a 10-mile radius from the scene. Volunteer cavalry swept southern fields with old irrigation ditches. Some found small fabric scraps, but Sanford ruled them unrelated to Evelyn's floral dress. The only relevant items remained the dress scrap near the bridge and the hair on the branch. Close inspection showed the fabric torn lengthwise, suggesting a snag or forceful pull, not a cut. Evelyn's white canvas shoe had no blood or dried mud inside, its sole evenly worn, indicating she walked extensively before vanishing. All evidence shoe, fabric, hair, and the silver ring engraved E.H. identified by her parents was collected, individually bagged, labeled Harper case. Sanford signed off and stored them in the Caldwell County office's safe, pending transfer to Austin's forensics lab. He also requested waterway rescue support to scan the San Marcos River's lower reaches with motorized boats. For 3 days, patrol boats glided along, dragging nets to check depths, but retrieved only branches, animal remains, and debris. When the effort ended, the report confirmed no human remains or drag marks along the banks. Meanwhile, police checked roads leaving town, logging unfamiliar license plates from the night of the disappearance, but none matched the tire tracks. Letters to nearby police departments about similar cases or bodies went unanswered. By week's end, Sanford submitted a 13-page report to the county, detailing evidence, search routes, and surveyed area maps. The typed conclusion read, "No body found, no evidence of violence at the scene. Items confirm personal identity, but don't prove criminal activity. Case classified, missing person, suspected lured from area." With this, the large-scale search ended, shifting to evidence analysis pending lab results. After completing the evidence collection, Sheriff Bill Sanford had the samples, shoe, fabric scrap, hair strand, and silver ring, transported to the Texas State Forensics Lab in Austin. This was a necessary step to determine any signs of criminal activity, though he knew the technology of the time was limited. At the lab, forensic experts cataloged each item per protocol, numbered, described, photographed, and sealed in separate envelopes. The canvas shoe was examined first, inspected under a magnifying glass for blood or foreign fibers. It showed only dried mud and fine sand. A technician applied the Kastle-Meyer test for blood, yielding a negative result. The torn floral fabric was lightly washed with ethanol, dried, and a small section was analyzed for ABO blood type using standard methods. Antibody serum was applied to the surface, checking for precipitation. All tests showed no human or animal blood, confirming the dark stain on the fabric's edge was just mud or organic matter. The hair from the branch was placed under an optical microscope. Experts compared its diameter, medulla shape, and pigment, noting it was human, naturally blonde, consistent with Evelyn Harper's description. However, without DNA analysis or individual microscopic indexing, the conclusion was limited to consistent in color and structure, insufficient for definitive identification. The silver ring was cleaned and photographed. The engraved E8 matched the victim's initials, but no clear fingerprints remained due to surface wear. A 7-page summary report was typed by week's end and sent back to the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. The opening line read, "No evidence of human blood, no signs of violence or struggle on items." In the evaluation, the lead forensic expert noted, "The hair is highly likely the victim's but cannot be conclusively confirmed. The torn fabric and shoe are relevant to the scene but lack specific criminal elements." Reading the report, Sanford saw it offered only assumptions, no conclusions strong enough to redirect the investigation. He sent a copy to the district prosecutor's office with a handwritten letter suggesting further investigation into possible abduction. A week later, the prosecutor replied briefly, "No basis for prosecution. Recommend holding the case as missing." The case remained unchanged. At the Caldwell County office, Sanford created a dedicated storage file for the Harper case, placing the sealed evidence envelopes in a locked metal drawer. On the file cover, he wrote "Missing cause undetermined" in green ink. This was how authorities then classified cases with no victim found and no provable crime. In his work log, Sanford added, "No blood evidence, no direct proof. All items confirmed the girl was at the scene." The Austin lab also archived a report copy in the state system, concluding, "No human blood, no direct evidence of homicide." These lines closed the initial forensic phase, leaving the case suspended between missing person and suspected abduction, with no clear legal grounds to proceed. Upon receiving the Austin forensic results, Sheriff Bill Sanford met with his 2 deputies and a district prosecutor's representative to determine the next steps. The inconclusive report meant all possibilities had to be considered. 3 main theories were outlined. 1. Evelyn Harper left voluntarily with an acquaintance or boyfriend. 2. She met with an accident, possibly falling into the San Marcos River during a rainy night. 3. She was a victim of an attack or murder. Sanford ordered separate files for each theory to be investigated in order of likelihood. The first, leaving with an acquaintance, involved checking transport, leaving Luling in the 2 days post-festival. The patrol team visited Luling's small bus depot, reviewing passenger lists, but found no Harper. They sent notices to police in Lockhart, Seguin, and San Antonio, requesting help to locate a lone female teenager. All responses were negative. The family confirmed Evelyn had no steady boyfriend or plans to leave. Her bedroom showed no signs of packing. Her savings remained on her desk. After 2 weeks, Sanford ruled out voluntary departure. The second theory, accident, river fall, seemed most plausible, given the scene's proximity to water. Sanford coordinated with a waterway rescue team to drag nets along the San Marcos River from Caldwell Bridge to downstream near Luling. Summer's low water levels offered clear visibility, but no body or unusual objects surfaced. They checked river branches and deep funnel-like pools, finding nothing. A hydrologist assessed that a body falling in on a wet night would likely catch on rocky shallows within days, but no such signs appeared. The rescue team withdrew, and Sanford noted no evidence of accident. The final theory, murder, was approached cautiously. No blood or direct witnesses existed, but personal items at the scene kept it viable. Sanford ordered a review of everyone who interacted with Evelyn in the 2 weeks prior. School records and family statements produced 14 names, with only one standing out, Reverend Clyde Walker. When Deputy Benton suggested re-questioning the pastor, the prosecutor hesitated, citing insufficient legal grounds. Instead, they recommended discreet monitoring, tracking Walker's activities, schedule, and relationships with young parishioners. Over 3 months, patrols noted Walker never left town, preached regularly, and showed no suspicious behavior. Reports became repetitive. No criminal activity observed. Other minor theories were explored, including a possible attack by a passing stranger who took her beyond the search radius. Sanford checked neighboring counties for similar missing person cases, finding none. Volunteers searched an eastern forest with abandoned oil sites, but found no traces. By fall, search resources dwindled, and the investigation budget nearly ran dry. Local media stopped reporting due to no progress. The Evelyn Harper file thinned in the office stacks. Sanford habitually rechecked the evidence during shifts, but found nothing new. All theories, voluntary departure, accident, murder, were exhausted. She didn't leave, didn't fall, and no proof of killing existed. In a late 1948 memo to the prosecutor, Sanford summarized, "All theories lack solid evidence. No signs of criminal activity. Case status, missing, cause undetermined." With that, the investigation stalled, leaving only scattered items and unanswered reports. In early 1949, with the investigation nearly stagnant, Deputy Ray Coleman, the youngest in the Caldwell County force, couldn't shake the feeling that Evelyn Harper's case wasn't a typical disappearance. 3 years into the job, trained in criminal investigation in Austin, he was meticulous, yet skeptical. Coleman spent free time reviewing old reports, noting discrepancies between witness statements and scene findings. One detail stood out: the 2-mile distance from the fairgrounds to Caldwell Bridge. Reverend Walker claimed he walked the girl to the main road and returned immediately, implying a 10-minute absence. Yet a witness said Walker's gray Ford left the area nearly half an hour before the music stopped. This gap prompted Coleman to dig deeper. Without informing superiors, he visited the Baptist church on a quiet weekday afternoon. Walker's gray Ford sedan was parked behind a small brick building. Coleman noticed a foot-long scratch on the passenger door, paint chipped, exposing silver metal. Under the door's edge, he found a small light blue cotton thread, resembling Evelyn's floral dress fabric. He collected it with tweezers, wrapped it in paper, and noted it in his personal notebook. The next day, Coleman reported this to Sheriff Bill Sanford, requesting a vehicle inspection warrant. Sanford listened but hesitated, citing political consequences due to Walker's ties to the town council and police donors. By day's end, Sanford advised Coleman to avoid action without clear evidence. Unconvinced, Coleman compared the thread to the sealed dress scrap. Lacking fiber analysis tools, he noted near identical color and pattern. He wrote a 3-page report detailing his find, requesting a warrant for the Ford sedan. The report was sent internally to the Caldwell County office. 2 weeks passed without response. When Coleman inquired, a clerk said the document was under review. A month later, he learned it was misfiled during storage and couldn't be located. Coleman understood the investigation into Walker was being blocked. Over months, he kept private notes in a small leather notebook, listing unresolved details, inconsistent statements, Ford matching tire tracks, the car scratch, and the matching thread. He also kept a hand-drawn scene sketch, marking where the car might have stopped that night. Coleman faced internal isolation. Colleagues avoided the Harper case. Some urged him to focus on current work. Sanford remained cordial, but cut short his reports in meetings. In September 1949, Coleman was temporarily reassigned to Travis County's office for administrative support. He saw this as a subtle removal from the case. Before leaving, he checked the Harper case evidence locker. All items remained, but he noticed a new sealed envelope inside, labeled, "Do not open, by order of sheriff." He didn't question it, only noting it in his book. By late 1949, upon completing his transfer, Coleman resigned. In his exit paperwork, he omitted the Harper case, but kept his notebook as his sole personal record. Its final page, in blue ink, read, "No one wants to dig deeper. But if someone remembers this girl someday, start with the car and the wall behind the church." In 1950, Ray Coleman left law enforcement, convinced the disappearance was buried for reasons unrelated to justice. In early 1951, nearly 3 years without progress, the Evelyn Harper case was reviewed in an internal Caldwell County Sheriff's Office meeting. Investigation reports, witness statements, and forensic results were compiled to assess further action. No body, no new witnesses, and all prior evidence held only descriptive value, not criminal proof. The district prosecutor recommended the case lacks grounds for ongoing criminal investigation and suggested classifying it as missing cause undetermined. After the meeting, Sheriff Bill Sanford signed the approval, moving the file to inactive, pending evidence, a soft closure avoiding admitted failure, but offering no answers. The evidence, shoe, fabric, hair, ring, and scene photos, was sealed in a locked steel box in Caldwell County's evidence locker, labeled Harper Case, 1948. A red seal noted the storage date, March 17, 1951. The locker, in the old courthouse basement, had basic ventilation and wooden shelves stacked with files. Sanford kept a carbon copy final report, folded in his work notebook, and ceased mentioning the case in meetings. Luling returned to normal. Missing person posters were removed, save a few faded ones at Harper's gas station. Evelyn's family closed the station and moved to relatives in Lockhart, cutting ties with local police. The case became a vague tale retold at fairs. Reverend Clyde Walker continued as Baptist church pastor, preaching Sundays, organizing fundraisers, and aiding the poor. To the town, he was a respected spiritual leader, invited to speak at county events. No one mentioned his being the last to see Evelyn Harper, nor did he. In October 1951, Walker received a Model Citizen Award from the town council. When the Luling Times published the story, Evelyn's name appeared only in a small note, stating the case was paused due to no new evidence. For authorities, the case was effectively closed. A brief note was added to the county records, case #4827H. Unresolved, no body, no crime. No further reports followed. For years, the evidence locker remained untouched. New officers knew Evelyn Harper only through the 1940s unresolved case list. Reverend Walker, once a suspect, preached for nearly 3 more decades before retiring. When he stepped down, the 1948 disappearance of the young girl was entirely forgotten in the town's memory. Nearly 7 decades later, in the fall of 2018, the old Caldwell County evidence locker was transferred to the Texas State Archives for a comprehensive inventory and digitization of unresolved case files. This was part of a criminal justice reform project aimed at reviewing dormant cases that could benefit from modern forensic technology. Among hundreds of dusty boxes, a young forensic clerk named Linda Morris was assigned to catalog the 1940-1960 section. While clearing the end of the basement corridor, she found an old, jammed metal cabinet. After prying it open, she discovered a few crumbling cardboard boxes, most with faded or peeling labels. A thick, wax-sealed envelope lay at the bottom drawer, its front typed with Case 4827H, Evelyn Harper, 1948. The seal was intact, slightly yellowed. Linda logged its inventory code, photographed its condition, and brought it to the verification table. Inside was a small cloth bag containing the old evidence: a shoe, a floral fabric scrap, a few hair strands wrapped in wax paper, and a silver ring engraved with EH. Each item bore a handwritten green ink label, faded but legible. Checking the archive log, she saw the case was never marked closed, only inactive pending evidence. Per protocol, such files required reassessment before destruction or preservation. Reading the attached 1948 forensic report, Linda noted its conclusion: insufficient legal basis, cause of disappearance undetermined. She paused at the note: evidence lacks value for further testing due to technological limitations. Having worked on Austin's old DNA recovery project, Linda knew that samples stored dry and away from light could retain cellular traces even after decades. She called her supervisor, presented her find, and requested the file be forwarded to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit, which specialized in unresolved cases with biological evidence. A week later, the Harper file was officially received at the Texas Rangers Austin headquarters. Investigator Sarah Denton, assigned to cold cases, took charge. With over 10 years' experience in unsolved homicides and training in genealogical DNA reconstruction, she noted the evidence was sealed in cloth bags, not plastic, inadvertently protecting it from mold or oxidation. She ordered a preliminary forensic check, which showed the hair strands retained roots, viable for nuclear DNA extraction. The floral fabric's torn edge also held stains, possibly containing epithelial cells. Sarah flagged this as the most promising lead for biological recovery. In her proposal to the unit director, she wrote, "Despite over 70 years of storage, the sealing conditions and material properties offer hope for DNA extraction. Recommend retesting all evidence with modern methods." The file was classified Cold Case Priority Level 2, Mid-Level Priority, with potential for evidence development. Linda Morris, who found the envelope, was invited to a technical meeting with Sarah's team to detail the inventory process. They agreed to follow strict preservation protocols, documenting the unsealing with 2 forensic representatives and a state judicial officer present. On November 3, 2018, the unsealing occurred at the Austin lab. Evidence was weighed, photographed, and recatalogued with a new coding system. The hair and fabric were prioritized for testing. In her log, Sarah wrote the first line of the new investigation, Harper file: assess potential for ancient DNA extraction. With that, a 1948 disappearance, long forgotten, was officially reactivated on Texas' active case list, beginning the retesting of evidence after over half a century of neglect. After the evidence unsealing, all hair and fabric samples from the Harper file were sent to the Texas Department of Public Safety Crime Laboratory in Austin for in-depth analysis. This state-level lab specialized in degraded DNA, particularly for cases over 50 years old. Under Sarah Denton's supervision, DPS technicians began sample recovery using nuclear DNA extraction combined with short-sequence amplification. The hair was cleaned with a weak alkaline solution, then its roots were pulverized in a cryogenic environment to preserve cellular structure. The floral fabric was similarly processed, with the stained area near the tear likely holding human epithelial cells, carefully cut. After 3 days, technicians obtained a small but viable DNA yield, sufficient for identification analysis. DPS software used next-generation sequencing to read fragmented gene sequences. Each sample was run 3 times to eliminate errors. Initial results showed 2 DNA sources in the hair, a dominant female profile, and a faint male trace. The fabric sample yielded similar results, suggesting direct contact between 2 individuals. Per protocol, the sequence data was coded and entered into the National CODIS database, also cross-checked with GEDmatch, a public genealogy platform often used in cold case investigations. To ensure accuracy, technicians applied third-degree kinship algorithms to trace living relatives. The 2-week comparison process returned a high match with a Harper family profile in Texas from a 2017 genealogy project, identified as Evelyn Harper's third cousin. This confirmed the female DNA belonged to the 1948 missing victim. Sarah noted in her report, hair nuclear DNA confirms Harper lineage origin, 99.84% reliability. The male DNA showed high similarity to the Walker family, residing in Caldwell County in the early 20th century. Genealogical data suggested the source was likely a direct relative of Reverend Clyde Walker, the local pastor. Sarah requested a residency record check to rule out coincidental surnames. State archives confirmed that from 1940–1950, only one Walker family, led by Reverend Clyde Walker, then 35, lived in Luling. No other Walkers registered a Ford sedan in that period. This was added to the comparison chart. Sarah requested further DPS analysis to refine the genetic relationship between the 2 DNA samples. Using YSTR and mitochondrial DNA sequencing, the lab concluded the male and female samples had prolonged physical contact, likely from struggle or forceful impact, leaving cross-cellular traces. The 15-page forensic summary, signed by the state lab chief, concluded, female DNA matches Harper family descendants, male DNA originates from the Walker lineage, 99.2% similarity. Random match probability outside the lineage is under 1 in 50 million. Sarah reviewed each line, noting this was the first quantitative breakthrough in the case. The report provided grounds to change the file's status. She prepared a formal proposal for the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board, stating, based on 1948 sealed evidence DNA results, confirming the presence of victim Evelyn Harper and a male from the Walker lineage, pursuant to Texas Penal Code Section 12404, recommend reclassifying the case from missing, cause undetermined to homicide investigation, unidentified perpetrator. The proposal was approved that month. On December 22, 2018, Case 4827H was updated in the state's electronic system to Cold Case Investigation, active. A new investigative team led by Sarah Denton was formed to review old documents, plan further evidence collection, and trace the Walker family's historical demographics. On the electronic file's first page, Sarah entered the opening note. DNA discovery confirms victim identity and contact source. Sufficient grounds to restart the investigation of Evelyn Harper's 1948 disappearance in Luling, Texas. With this, a case forgotten for 70 years was officially revived under a new legal status, entering a full criminal investigation phase. In early 2019, after the Evelyn Harper case was officially reopened, the Texas Rangers team began a historical site survey. Investigator Sarah Denton reviewed all surviving documents, including a scanned copy of Deputy Ray Coleman's handwritten notes from the archives. On the final page, Coleman wrote faintly, "If anyone still looks for her, start with the car and the wall behind the church." This caught Sarah's attention, as the land behind the old Baptist church, where Reverend Walker preached, was near a San Marcos River branch, only 400 meters from the initial evidence site. She requested permission from the investigative board to survey the area using ground-penetrating radar, a modern method for detecting old burial cavities. In early March, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit, with University of Texas geophysical experts, brought equipment to the site. The abandoned Baptist church, unused since the 1970s, had mossy brick walls and knee-high grass. Beneath tangled roots, the ground was flat, but showed signs of past leveling. The radar scanned in parallel strips, penetrating 2 meters deep. The display showed uneven signals, indicating inconsistent soil structure. Near the riverbank, about 12 meters from the church's foundation, an oval-shaped reflective anomaly appeared, roughly 1.5 meters long and 80 centimeters deep, a shape typical of long-buried graves. Sarah halted the equipment, marked the spot, and documented the excavation with a district prosecutor's representative present. The next day, manual digging began to avoid damaging evidence. The top layer was dry brown clay, followed by wet riverbank mud. At about 60 centimeters, a technician found a round gray-white object, identified as a human bone fragment, after clearing the soil. The team carefully uncovered a nearly intact skeleton, lying on its right side, arms slightly bent at the chest. The surrounding soil was darker from prolonged organic decomposition. Near the right wrist bone, they found a small silver ring engraved with EH, nearly identical to the file's description. Around the rib area, a darkened floral fabric scrap remained, its fiber structure matching the 1948 evidence. The skeleton was fully extracted, and the team mapped the site, took photos, and created a 3D scene diagram. The excavation site was GPS marked, sealed with red tape, and labeled Potential Burial Site, Harper Case. Sarah oversaw the packaging. The remains were placed in a specialized box with moisture-resistant padding, sealed with wax per forensic protocol. The fabric and ring were stored separately in anti-static nylon bags. At sunset, the evidence was transported to the Austin Forensic Lab under patrol escort. The 12-page excavation report, with radar images, concluded, discovery of female human remains, estimated buried 70 years ago, with evidence matching the description in the Evelyn Harper 1948 disappearance file. The next day, Sarah held an urgent meeting with the district prosecutor and the forensic unit chief. Based on the physical evidence, they agreed to reclassify the case from missing undetermined to suspected homicide. This was updated in the state system on March 19, 2019. For the team, this was the most significant turning point since the case reopened. For the first time in 7 decades, the victim's existence was confirmed with tangible evidence, and prior data, from tire tracks to DNA, began forming a coherent chain. In her report to the Texas Rangers Board, Sarah wrote, "The discovery of remains and identifying evidence is definitive proof altering the case's nature. The Harper file is no longer a missing person case, but a suspected homicide with an unidentified perpetrator. The remains were stored in Austin's forensic cold storage for detailed analysis. Technicians noted the bone's good condition, suitable for DNA recovery, and observed trauma signs on the neck and skull. The excavation site was sealed for further surveys, and the old church was secured for historical site analysis." Outside, local media quickly reported the discovery of remains, possibly linked to a girl missing over 70 years, shocking the quiet Luling community. But for the team, the critical shift was the case's legal reclassification. After over half a century, as 4827H, missing person, a new note appeared in Texas's system, Homicide Investigation, Evelyn Harper, 1948. At the Austin Forensic Lab, the examination of the remains recovered from the area behind the old Baptist church was conducted under strict control conditions. The forensic team, led by Dr. Harold Crane, included 3 anthropologists and 2 DNA technicians, working continuously over several days to analyze each bone, tooth, and accompanying evidence. The entire process was recorded and documented per Texas state standards. The skeleton was arranged on a large metal table in anatomical position. Initial observations confirmed it was human, female, with femur and humerus lengths corresponding to a teenager, aged approximately 16 to 18. The degree of bone mineralization, particularly at cartilage ends, indicated an incompletely developed body, supporting the assumption that it matched Evelyn Harper's description at the time of her disappearance, 17 years old. The skull, cleaned with a biological enzyme solution, revealed a clear injury on the right side, a fracture extending from the temporal bone to the cheekbone, showing signs of pre-mortem breakage, suggesting a strong impact with a hard object. In the cervical spine, the top 3 vertebrae had cracks and misalignment, characteristic of mechanical strangulation. No cuts or scratches from sharp objects were found, ruling out a knife attack. Technicians noted a preliminary conclusion: the cause of death was likely asphyxiation from strangulation combined with traumatic brain injury. Dental examination showed intact enamel, no cracks, and fully replaced baby teeth, consistent with age 17. A mercury amalgam filling on an upper canine, a common dental technique in late 1940s America, aligned the time of death with the 1948 disappearance. Bone marrow from the femur and tooth pulp were extracted for DNA analysis. Due to degradation, the lab used targeted gene amplification and full sequencing via next-generation sequencing. Concurrently, soil samples around the bones were chemically analyzed to determine burial time. Carbon isotope dating indicated the body was buried 70 to 72 years ago, precisely matching 1948. After 2 weeks, the forensic lab completed a comprehensive report. The first section confirmed a female, age 17, Perny 1, Caucasian, 1.63 meters tall, with skeletal structure matching biological data from Evelyn Harper's Luling High School records. The second section noted the cause of death as asphyxiation from manual strangulation, combined with right-side head trauma causing intracranial hemorrhage. The injury map suggested the victim was attacked while sitting or crouching. The skull fracture was consistent with impact against a metal surface, possibly a car frame. DNA results, cross-referenced with Harper family genealogy from GED Match, showed a 99.98% match, confirming the victim as Evelyn Harper, with a random match probability under 1 in 100 million. The floral fabric near the chest contained threads identical to the 1948 evidence, reinforcing the link between the excavation site and original items. The silver ring showed wear consistent with long-term use, not a fabrication. All data formed a cohesive chain of evidence, sufficient to confirm the remains as those of the girl missing since 1948. The 18-page summary report was sent to the Texas District Attorney's Office. In its conclusion, lead examiner Harold Crane wrote, "Based on anthropological evidence, DNA sequencing, and injury traces, the victim is identified as Evelyn Harper, born 1931, resident of Luling, Texas. Cause of death, asphyxiation by strangulation and premortem cranial trauma. Estimated time of death, mid-June 1948. Burial method, shallow burial post-mortem, no signs of body relocation." The report was submitted to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit with a recommendation to update the case's legal status. That same day, the state judicial system recorded the change. Case 4827H, victim identified, classified as homicide. With DNA and anthropological confirmation, authorities officially identified the remains as Evelyn Harper's, the 1948 missing person, and redirected the case to a homicide investigation to pursue the responsible party. After confirming the victim's identity, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit focused on reviewing genealogical and demographic data related to the Walker family in Luling at the time of the crime. State records identified one matching individual by age, address, and occupation. Reverend Clyde Walker, Baptist church pastor, named in all 1948 statements. Records showed Walker, born 1913, died 1993 in Austin, at age 80. Buried in Greenwood Memorial Cemetery west of the city. The Walker family had no direct descendants in Luling, only distant relatives in Houston. For homicide investigation protocols for unidentified perpetrators, Sarah Denton filed a request with the Travis County Court for a grave exhumation to compare genetic DNA. The request was approved after 3 weeks, citing reasonable suspicion of a connection between the deceased and male DNA traces in the evidence. On May 14, 2019, the exhumation proceeded under court, prosecutor, and state forensic oversight. Walker's grave, in Row B, Plot 12, was marked by a granite headstone. Reverend Clyde Walker, servant of God. After removing the headstone and soil, the team opened the decayed wooden coffin, collecting femur, rib, and tooth samples for DNA testing. The process was fully recorded and documented. Samples were sealed, certified, and sent to the Texas DPS crime lab in Austin that day. At the lab, technicians extracted nuclear DNA from aged bone using specialized amplification for degraded samples. After 10 days, they obtained sufficient data to compare with the male DNA from the 1948 fabric and hair. Analysis showed a perfect match at 23 genetic loci, with an error probability below 1 in 10 billion. The report stated, bone samples from Clyde Walker's grave fully match the male DNA in the 1948 evidence. This is an identical genetic source, not random. Sarah Denton received the results in early June. She immediately submitted them to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board and state prosecutor for confirmation. The 24-page report included 3 sections: 1 evidence origin, 2 genealogical and comparative DNA results, 3 context and motive analysis. The team's evaluation stated, based on scientific evidence, Reverend Clyde Walker is confirmed as the source of biological traces on victim Evelyn Harper's evidence. Absolute genetic similarity eliminates random coincidence. The crime occurred on the night of June 18, 1948. The Texas District Attorney's Office certified the results as valid evidence and notified the Harper family of the findings. In the state's official records, Reverend Clyde Walker was listed as primary suspect, deceased. A mid-June internal briefing by the Texas Rangers confirmed the Evelyn Harper case was resolved through post-mortem DNA evidence, identifying Walker as the perpetrator responsible for the death of the 17-year-old missing since 1948. The final summary, signed by Sarah Denton on June 21, 2019, stated, based on all scientific evidence, historical witness statements, and genetic analysis, the only reasonable conclusion is that Reverend Clyde Walker was present with the victim at the time of the incident, caused the injuries leading to her death, and buried the body behind the Baptist church in Luling. DNA evidence recovered after over 70 years confirms his role with 100% certainty. Upon approval, the case's legal status was updated in Texas judicial system. The previous homicide investigation, active, was replaced with Case 4827, a bender identified. This marked the end of the suspect identification phase, confirming that the man once seen as a moral exemplar in the small Texas town was the perpetrator who took Evelyn Harper's life 71 years earlier. After DNA confirmed Reverend Clyde Walker as the perpetrator, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit proceeded with the final step, collecting additional statements from living witnesses tied to the original case. The goal was to verify the 1948 social context and why the suspect evaded prosecution. Records identified 2 key surviving witnesses, Nora Jenkins, the last person to see Evelyn leave the fair with Walker, and William Bill Turner, a former patrol officer under Sheriff Bill Sanford. In August 2019, Sarah Denton and a colleague drove to Lockhart to meet Nora Jenkins, then 94, at a nursing home. Her memory remained sharp. Recalling the 1948 fair night, Jenkins said she worked at a sweets booth near the South Gate. She clearly remembered Evelyn Harper stopping to chat with Pastor Walker. He put his hand on her shoulder, she said, and I saw them leave together toward the parking lot. No one else followed. Jenkins noted that after Evelyn's disappearance, she gave a detailed statement to police, but was told to soften her account because, per an officer, it could harm the church's reputation. When Sarah asked who said this, Jenkins couldn't recall the name, only a man in a brown hat, likely the sheriff's deputy. She added that days later, Walker visited her home with a fruit basket, thanking her for helping at the right time. She didn't understand his intent then, but later regretted staying silent. Next, Sarah met Bill Turner, 96. A former patrol officer living with his son in Austin suburbs. When Evelyn Harper's case was mentioned, he paused, then said, "I knew it would come back someday." Turner recalled logging tire tracks and attending Walker's initial questioning. Sheriff Sanford wanted to dig deeper, he said, but the town council wouldn't allow it. One council member, Walker's cousin, led the church's finance committee. Turner noted Sanford faced pressure from major police department donors and was advised to focus on clear-cut cases. When Sarah asked why no one objected, Turner replied, "The church controlled everything in Luling back then. Oppose them, you lost your job. Simple as that." The team also interviewed two secondary witnesses, Helen Moore, a former Fair Pastry booth worker, and Deputy Ray Coleman's son, who kept his father's notebook. Moore, now over 80, confirmed a similar memory. She saw Walker lead Evelyn to the gate, but was later approached by a stranger, claiming to be from the district attorney's office, urging her not to make a fuss. After that, no one followed up on her statement. Coleman's son provided Sarah with his father's original notebook, confirming Coleman was haunted lifelong by the case's suppression. All statements were recorded, documented, and cross-referenced with original files. Verification showed a common thread. Witnesses faced pressure to stay silent or alter details about Reverend Walker. The consistency among the three elderly witnesses, Jenkins, Turner, Moore, supported the theory that the 1948 investigation was deliberately obstructed locally due to the suspect's religious and political influence. In her report to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board, Sarah Denton wrote, "Surviving witnesses confirmed they were advised to stay silent to protect the Baptist Church's reputation and Reverend Walker's personal standing. This pressure came from both public authorities and religious figures, causing the case to be mishandled." The report noted that the loss of Deputy Coleman's notes and internal file misplacement were not accidental, but results of systematic cover-up. The team finalized the witness section of the file, stating, "Historical witness evidence confirms intentional suppression during the 1948 investigation, enabling suspect Reverend Clyde Walker to evade prosecution. Religious influence and local political power distorted the initial investigation. This completed the witness foundation, explaining why justice was delayed for over 70 years. After completing witness interviews, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit and Texas Forensic Team reconstructed the Evelyn Harper case timeline using 1948 scene data, 2019 excavation results, and biological evidence. The goal was to establish the exact sequence of events leading to the victim's death and create a realistic timeline based on the era's geography and weather. Data was entered into a 3D crime scene simulation system, mapping the route, Reverend Walker's Ford's position, and the burial site. Using original Texas Department of Transportation maps and current satellite imagery, experts recreated the dirt road from the fairgrounds to Caldwell Bridge. The route, about 2 miles long, had a small turnoff leading directly to the land behind the Baptist Church near the San Marcos River. Based on compiled data, on the night of June 18, 1948, Evelyn Harper left the fair with Reverend Clyde Walker around 10:45 p.m. A witness confirmed seeing Walker's gray Ford depart the south gate, heading north. Given the traffic conditions of the time, the vehicle would have taken about 10 minutes to reach the church. The 2019 scene analysis revealed Firestone 1947 tire tracks matching Walker's Ford sedan near Caldwell Bridge, the link between the fairgrounds and the church. From this, the forensic team determined it was likely Walker stopped the vehicle on a secluded stretch near the riverbank. In the reconstruction, the two were believed to have conversed in the car, possibly about Evelyn's request to work at the church office. However, biological evidence indicated a physical altercation. Mixed DNA on the fabric scrap confirmed direct contact between victim and perpetrator, with signs of a forceful struggle. The longitudinal tear on the fabric aligned with a pull toward the wrist, consistent with grabbing during resistance. The victim's cervical bone analysis showed 3 dislocated vertebrae, confirming death by manual strangulation. No rope marks were found, ruling out an intermediary tool. This led to the hypothesis that Walker attacked the victim in the car's front compartment, using direct force to cause rapid death. The skull evidence, a fracture on the right temporal region, was explained as a post-consciousness injury, likely from the head striking the car doorframe as the perpetrator moved the body. Analysis of mud on Evelyn's shoe showed she stepped out of the vehicle before being subdued, meaning the incident didn't occur entirely in a confined space, but began when they stopped near the river. Walker may have used an excuse, like checking the vehicle or pausing to talk, then attacked when she turned away. Soil dating from the burial pit confirmed the body was buried within 12 to 24 hours post-death. The 400-meter distance between the vehicle stop and the burial site indicated Walker moved the body that night or early the next morning. Choosing the area behind the church likely leveraged its seclusion and his control over the site. Soil particles on the fabric and in the skull cavity matched samples from the burial area, confirming the body wasn't relocated multiple times. The team used National Weather Service meteorological data to verify conditions that night: approximately 26 degrees Celsius, high humidity, light wind, no rain. These conditions aligned with the 2019 chemical analysis, indicating a shallow burial's decomposition rate matched the findings. All evidence supported the victim's death on June 18, 1948, and burial by dawn on June 19. The complete 3D simulation was presented at the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board meeting in late September 2019. The model depicted the sequence: Evelyn leaving the fair, the Ford heading north, stopping at the lot near Caldwell Bridge, a struggle and strangulation in the car, the perpetrator dragging the body, wrapped in torn fabric, and burying it shallowly near an oak tree by the San Marcos River. Corroborated by witness statements, the timeline was reinforced around 11 p.m. A witness saw the Ford turn toward the church at 11:20 p.m. A resident near the bridge heard a loud engine and saw headlights sweep across the field, matching the time the vehicle left the scene. This aligned with Sheriff Sanford's original report. Suspect vehicle left the Caldwell Bridge area around 23 o'clock. Physical and biological evidence, combined with the reconstruction, allowed the team to establish the most logical sequence and timeline. The 43-page summary report concluded, victim Evelyn Harper died on the night of June 18, 1948, from an attack and strangulation by Reverend Clyde Walker near Caldwell Bridge. The perpetrator moved the body to the land behind the Baptist church, burying it shallowly by the San Marcos River to conceal the crime. All scene data, DNA, forensic results, and witness statements support this sequence. With the reconstruction complete, authorities confirmed the case timeline was fully and consistently established, from the victim's departure from the fair to her burial. For the first time in over 7 decades, Evelyn Harper's disappearance was presented as a complete criminal case, with forensic evidence, a clear sequence, and precise timeline. In late October 2019, after nearly a year of continuous work, investigator Sarah Denton finalized the Evelyn Harper case file and presented it to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board in Austin. The meeting, held in the state headquarters' large conference room, included representatives from the Texas District Attorney's Office, the Criminal Justice Division, and the forensic team. On the table was a nearly 400-page file containing copies of 1948 reports, 2019 excavation photos, DNA analyses, witness statements, and the crime reconstruction. Sarah began with a summary: all scientific evidence, historical witness accounts, and geological scene data point to one person: Reverend Clyde Walker. She reviewed the sequence, emphasizing the unbroken chain of evidence from 1948 items to 2019 analyses. A 3D graphic was projected, simulating the route from the fair to the burial site, showing the two in the Ford sedan, the struggle, and the vehicle's headlights turning from Caldwell Bridge. The room fell silent as she described the perpetrator burying the body behind the church he served. Concluding, Sarah requested the board recognize the case as resolved, proposing the classification solved, offender identified. After questioning, the board unanimously approved the conclusion. The meeting minutes stated, based on DNA analysis, witness data and scene reconstruction, Reverend Clyde Walker is confirmed as the perpetrator of Evelyn Harper's 1948 death. As the suspect died in 1993, the case is classified as resolved post-mortem. This decision legally closed the criminal investigation while ensuring transparent public disclosure. On November 4, 2019, the Texas Rangers and the State District Attorney's Office held a press conference to announce the results. Before local TV cameras, Sarah Denton summarized the investigation, from discovering the sealed envelope in the old evidence locker to DNA analysis, excavation, and identifying both victim and perpetrator. State Prosecutor Marion Price stated, "This proves justice is not bound by time. A case thought forgotten for over 7 decades now has answers." The conference drew heavy media coverage. Articles published that day headlined, "DNA Solves 1948, Luling Murder. Pastor Identified as Killer." In Luling, the news spread quickly, shocking the community. Elderly residents recalled Walker's tenure, many struggling to believe a pastor once seen as a moral icon was the perpetrator of a case that stirred the town. Younger residents read the file, sharing posts online with comments like, "Justice delayed but delivered." The town council held an emergency meeting with the Old Baptist Church Board, deciding to permanently close the church, remove its sign, and transfer the land to local authorities. The site was sealed for historical research, with no further religious activities. Outside Texas media ran in-depth analyses. Legal experts hailed the case as a model for DNA genealogy in resolving old crimes. The Austin Chronicle wrote, "The Harper case marks a milestone in Texas criminal justice, from a case with no body or evidence to a clear conclusion after 70 years. The Luling Times dedicated its front page to a photo of the old church, captioned, "Justice after 71 years." Post-conference, the Texas Rangers finalized administrative procedures, archiving the case in the state judicial system under 4827H. Solved case. The official conclusion, signed by Sarah Denton, was printed on the first page. The Evelyn Harper case, occurring in Luling, Texas, June 1948, is confirmed as a homicide. Perpetrator: Reverend Clyde Walker. Status resolved. Offender identified post-mortem. A copy was sent to the Texas Historical Archives for permanent preservation. For Texas law enforcement, the Harper case became a symbol of persistence and modern forensic technology. In a summary report to the U.S. Department of Justice, the Texas Rangers noted, "From small remnants in an evidence locker, we revived a case buried under 7 decades of silence." In Luling, the church where Walker preached had its sign removed by mid-December. The old wooden door was sealed with a state warning, "Closed by order of the state, historical crime site." No church bells rang, only an empty courtyard faced the San Marcos River, where a murder was hidden beneath sediment for 71 years. The closure symbolized the end of a dark chapter in the town's history, affirming that, though delayed, justice carried undeniable weight. In December 2019, after the Evelyn Harper case was announced, resolved, investigator Sarah Denton completed a 50-plus page forensic and operational summary report submitted to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Board and the Texas Department of Justice. The report not only summarized the investigation, but served as a system evaluation for cold case protocols statewide. Its introduction stated, "The Harper case proves that operational errors, societal pressures, and past technological limits can stall justice for decades. Yet, forensic science advancements and system persistence restored the truth." Sarah divided the report into 3 sections. Section 1. Analysis of 1948 operational errors. She identified the core reasons the case wasn't solved initially: evidence preservation flaws and unlawful interference from religious and political influences. At the time, items were stored in cloth bags without wax seals, lacking temperature and humidity control, risking damage. Fortunately, the cloth storage inadvertently prevented oxidation, enabling later DNA recovery. Sarah stressed that had the evidence been destroyed, the case would have remained unsolved. She also detailed the local agency's lack of independence. Caldwell County Police were swayed by religious and financial power, particularly from Reverend Walker and the Church Council. She wrote, "A justice system cannot function if external forces beyond the law steer investigations." The Harper case exemplifies the consequences. Section 2. Impact of DNA genealogy technology. Sarah detailed how this technology was pivotal in resolving the cold case. Using public genealogy data on GED match with next-generation sequencing, the team reconstructed genetic links between the victim and the suspect's lineage. Distant relative DNA matching identified the male DNA in the evidence, despite the suspect's death decades earlier. Sarah noted, without genealogical DNA, the biological traces in the fabric and hair would have been meaningless code. This technology turned seemingly useless items into absolute scientific evidence. She highlighted interagency collaboration from the Austin Forensic Lab, State Archives, to the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit as critical to success. The report noted the Harper case as Texas' sixth solved via DNA genealogy, but the first fully recovered from evidence over 70 years old. Section 3. Evidence Preservation System Improvements. From the case's lessons, Sarah proposed specific protocols for unresolved case evidence. First, all items with potential biological traces, regardless of age, must be stored indefinitely, not destroyed without DNA testing or court order. Second, county evidence lockers should transition to centralized electronic ID management for interagency access. Third, establish a historical evidence recovery fund, a dedicated budget for inventory, restoration, and retesting old cases. Sarah also proposed mandatory periodic reviews. Every case, even without progress, must be reassessed, at least once every 10 years, to avoid being forgotten like Harper. The report's final section offered an overall evaluation. Sarah concluded that technology was only part of the solution. Investigative diligence and ethical responsibility were decisive. She wrote, "Past errors were not just technical, but in allowing faith and power to blur justice's boundaries. We must ensure this never recurs." The report was approved by the State Judicial Board and distributed to Texas law enforcement as a standardized protocol for case preservation. On December 18, 2019, the Texas Department of Justice released an official summary based on Sarah's report, affirming the Harper case as a model for applying DNA genealogy and reforming evidence management. In the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit's log, under the conclusion section, Sarah wrote the final line. "The Evelyn Harper case proves that justice requires not only time, but also memory, the memory of people, and the memory of records." With that note, her forensic and systemic evaluation was complete, closing the final chapter of a 71-year forgotten case. In February 2020, 3 months after the Evelyn Harper case was officially declared resolved, the town of Luling held its first memorial ceremony for the girl missing since 1948. Organized by local authorities, the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit, and the Texas State Archives, the event took place on the San Marcos riverbank near Caldwell Bridge, the last place Evelyn was seen. Residents gathered early, many bringing wildflowers and copies of old newspaper photos. In the empty courtyard, a white stone memorial was erected, inscribed simply, "Evelyn Harper, 1931-1948. Never forgotten." Harper family representatives, distant relatives from Lockhart and Houston, attended. They shared that despite the years, the family never had a place to mourn. With her identity confirmed and the case resolved, they finally found closure. A Texas state representative stated, "We cannot change the past, but we can ensure it is remembered accurately." At the old Baptist church where Walker once preached, the sealed building was converted into a temporary exhibit on Texas cold case investigation. A small section displayed Case 4827H as a prime example of DNA genealogy success. In a glass case, replicas of the sealed envelope, 2019 excavation photos, the floral fabric, and DNA analysis copies were showcased, all annotated in detail. At the case's base, a plaque read, "The Evelyn Harper Case, solved by science, preserved by memory." Open to the public for 3 months, the exhibit drew thousands, including forensic students, young officers, and residents eager to learn how a decades-old case was revived through modern technology. Concurrently, Sarah Denton finalized a comprehensive report for the Texas Department of Justice. The over 80-page document, titled Forensic Legacy, the Evelyn Harper Case, and the Preservation of Evidence, opened with the Harper case, proves the value of time when paired with memory and data. Without the evidence preserved in the old locker, there would be no DNA to compare, and no truth restored. The report emphasized the legal and ethical duty to preserve evidence long-term. Sarah recommended that every police department implement automatic periodic evidence inventories to prevent cases from being forgotten, like Harper's. She also proposed establishing a degraded evidence recovery forensic training center in Austin to replicate the Harper case experience. The report was deemed a model document by the Texas Judicial Council and distributed internally to justice agencies across Texas. In its conclusion, Sarah wrote, "Though the perpetrator is deceased, identifying him and completing the event sequence delivers justice to the victim, her family, and the community that once stayed silent. Justice is not just punishment, but the acknowledgement of truth." This quote was later engraved on the exhibit room's outer wall, a reminder of investigative perseverance. Texas media covered the case through the spring. Many articles highlighted its societal impact, noting the Harper case restored public faith in the legal system. Universities used Case 4827H in forensic and criminal justice curricula. A local TV station produced a short documentary tracing the journey from a dusty evidence locker to the Riverbank Memorial. The host concluded, "A silver ring, a strand of hair, and persistence, enough to rewrite history." In Luling, elderly residents shared memories of Evelyn with younger generations. The story became part of local history, no longer a mysterious disappearance, but a lesson in truth's power. The town decided to maintain the memorial stone permanently and named the road from downtown to the Riverbank Harper Memorial Drive. Each June, residents lay flowers and honor other missing victims statewide. In Texas's judicial system, Case 4827H was marked in green, signifying a resolved post-mortem case. Its official status read, "Closed, solved, 2019." All original evidence, shoe, fabric, hair, and silver ring, was permanently stored in Austin's criminal archives in a moisture-proof box with a scannable ID. The electronic file was backed up on the Texas Department of Justice server, noted, "Case serves as educational reference for evidence preservation and forensic genealogy." In June 2020, on the 72nd anniversary of Evelyn's disappearance, a forensic symposium at the University of Texas centered on the Harper case. Sarah Denton spoke as the keynote speaker, recounting the sealed envelope's discovery and her belief that no case is too old for justice. Her speech ended, "Every cold case is a voice waiting to be heard, and every preserved piece of evidence is an unfulfilled promise." The audience gave a standing ovation, not just for the scientific achievement, but for the persistence of a new generation of investigators. As the symposium closed, a small exhibit displayed case photos from the 1948 gray Ford to the 2019 excavation. On the final wall, a photo of the San Marcos River Memorial stood beside a quote from Sarah's report, "Justice has no expiration date." In fall 2020, Texas officially added the Harper case to the Texas Historic Cold Cases collection, a showcase of cases solved with advanced technology. Case 4827H opened the traveling exhibit DNA and the Echoes of Time, displayed in major cities. Tens of thousands viewed the old envelope, a symbol of a truth revived from obscurity. At the Texas Rangers Cold Case Unit office in Austin, the original paper file was placed in a dedicated glass case beside a metal engraved note, Evelyn Harper case, closed, solved, 2019. Below was a copy of Sarah Denton's signature and an italicized quote, "No crime is truly forgotten, only waiting for someone patient enough to find it." With that, the 71-year journey ended. Evelyn Harper, the forgotten girl from a small Texas town, was finally given back her name, her voice, and the justice she deserved. The Evelyn Harper case is not just a closed criminal file after 71 years, but a profound reminder for American society today, where justice cannot exist without memory, responsibility, and faith in science. That an old sealed envelope, forgotten in an evidence locker for decades, became the key to unlocking the truth reflects the value of preserving data, evidence, and transparency in every system. Had Caldwell County Police in 1948 not allowed religious and political influence to sway the investigation, Evelyn might have been found sooner, and the community's trust in the law might not have been so deeply harmed. This message resonates in today's America, where trust in institutions and public agencies is often tested. Sarah Denton's persistence, believing no case is too old for justice, exemplifies the professional spirit needed across fields from law enforcement to journalism, education, and citizen data management. DNA genealogy, central to solving the case, underscores science and innovation's role in correcting past mistakes, but technology is only valuable with ethical, persistent people. In today's United States, the Harper case's lesson is simple yet powerful. Don't dismiss something just because it's old, for sometimes justice or truth needs only one patient person, a carefully preserved file, and a belief that time cannot erase the traces of conscience. Thank you for following Evelyn Harper's journey to justice. The young girl from Luling restored her name after over 70 years of silence. If you believe truth always finds a way, subscribe to our channel to explore more cold cases in our next video.